In our modern world, the desire of power from the leading nations and the violent acts executed by organized crime groups are situations we address on a daily basis. As college students from the United States and Mexico, we are aware of the different problematics that these nations experience, such as migration, organized crime, drug traffic, human traffic, etc. The relationship between these governments has been in constant change due to the situations mentioned before. Human trafficking is a worldwide problem which has increased its network, becoming a global issue. An estimated of 21 million victims are trapped in modern-day slavery. 14.2 million are exploited for labor. 4.5 million are sexually exploited, and 2.2 million are exploited in state imposed forced labor. Being women the most vulnerable to be the victims.
The Protocol to Prevent, Suppress and Punish Trafficking in Persons, Article 3, Paragraph A, defines trafficking in persons as the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of the threat or use of force or other forms of coercion, of abduction, of fraud, of deception, of the abuse of power, or of a position of vulnerability, or of the giving or receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation. Exploitation shall include prostitution, forced labor, or services, slavery or practices similar to slavery, servitude, or other semoral of organs.
The European Institute of Gender Equality defines women trafficking as the form of trafficking that targets women and girls, but not limited to those in the most disadvantaged positions. Women and girls are usually trafficked for the purpose of sexual and economic exploitation. Some examples are prostitution, pornography, forced labor, including for work in commercial agriculture and domestic work, arranged marriages or to be sold as brides, recruitment for participation in hostilities and such related purposes as sexual services, portage and domestic functions in conflict situations. Their experience of trafficking are different to that of men and boys. Portugal is one of the most affected nations in Europe, even though there are many regulations in its borders. Human traffic is an ongoing matter in Portugal's security.
Where do these women come from? They come from low, middle class regions in Brazil, Eastern Europe, such as areas in Russia, Ukraine, Romania, and a few countries in Africa, such as Cape Verde and Nigeria. How does this happen? So, usually, women are searching for jobs, family members, and other opportunities for a better life. Women get involved, voluntarily or not, in trafficking, trying to escape from social and economic uncertainty. Why does this happen? Women could be fleeing dangerous situations, or they're forced into it, they are poor, or they're discriminated against. And there are some human rights violations, and a few of them are rights to life. Many of these women are beaten and killed by the men they are sold to. The second one is right to dignity and security. There is no security or dignity as they're being sold off as objects to men, uncertain of what their futures hold. The third one is right to just and favorable working conditions. They are being forced into sexual exploitation and labor. And a few more are the right to health, the right to not be subjected to torture and or cruel, inhumane, degrading treatment or punishment, the right to seek asylum, and the right to not be submitted into forced labor. And then the picture in the middle shows how the process of trafficking works. It sort of just starts off with recruitment, and then the women are transported to a certain location, and then they are exploited.
And the photo on the left shows a woman over a barcode, and that just represents that women are not for sale. They're not something that you should be able to purchase and be able to sell them to another like group or person. So, in the photo on the right shows that there's a lot of protests, especially close to DC. You could even go to a protest yourself, and it says women's rights are human rights, and that just means that women should be treated as equally as men. And there are many people that can help assist these women during these types of situations. Police are on the lookout for any women trafficking or human trafficking at all, and they will report it and take certain people into custody if they think that such people are involved in these types of situations. Also, social workers are assigned to certain cases that they're there to help assist women find resources when they're dealing with these types of situations, and also legal services to make sure that those people are taken into jail or prison and held accountable for what they have done. And moving on to the next one is what can be done. Again, women's marches are a big thing, like I said, here in DC and also in other places, typically big cities, to help educate people and to kind of give out their voice and say that this cannot be something that we, have happen in our world or something that we accept. Also, educating people on what women trafficking is really important because if you ask some of your peers or even some of our family members, they might not even know what women trafficking is. And it's something that everyone should be on the same page about so they can help stop it. And of course, we would never want it to happen to us or our peers. So making sure we know how to handle these situations when they happen or when we see them in our world is very important. Also, there's more things that can be done in the next two sections. Stop allowing males to get away with these behaviors. So like I said about the police, making sure that these people are being held accountable for their actions and being taken into custody. Also, raising punishment for these vicious acts is very important. Sometimes we hear about different cases where people are getting away with things that just aren't acceptable and they only have, let's say, a 2-year sentence when this is something that there should be a more lengthy sentence because it's such a serious crime. And moving on to the other section, provide women with these resources. It's really important that they're provided with housing and different people that can help them locate these resources specific to their area because they might not even know how close these services are to them. And it's really important to get them in contact with them so they can start living a better life and not be a part of the women trafficking anymore. Also promoting gender inequality. Women are just as important as men, so making sure that men aren't getting away with anything and harming women, making sure that women have a voice and are sticking up for themselves and others. And last but not least, implementing more things like the penal code, having different things get passed, different laws and things like that will help eliminate more of these actions.
Human trafficking is on the rise in Portugal. An European Commission report in December noted that between 2015 and 2016, Portugal had a higher proportion of legal trafficking victims per 1 million of the population than any other European state. In fact, the Commission found that the first group of trafficking victims are subject to labor exploitation, with an estimate of 60% of human. The second largest group are subject to sexual trafficking, which accounts for 28% of known victims.
Portugal has been fighting these problems since 2008. In this year, the Portuguese government created an Observatory on Human Trafficking, the OSTH, which established strict penalties for human trafficking, between 3 to 15 years, depending on the severity and extent of the crime. In 2013, Portugal adopted the third action plan to prevent and combat trafficking in human beings. These had a total of 53 measures and is focused on 5 main strategic areas. Number 1, prevention, awareness raising, acknowledgement and investigation. 2, education, training and qualification. 3, protection, intervention and capacity building. Number 4, criminal investigation. And last but not least, cooperation.
So for our social campaign, we decided to do like a Facebook page, and so about our Facebook page, we would add anonymous stories told by women that have experienced women trafficking. We want to add surveys that help individuals recognize if women have been considered a victim of human trafficking, and we would also want to educate people by adding published articles to help, like I said, educate people about human trafficking that occurs all over the world.
There are so many resources. Again, I keep mentioning the DC area, but especially in other places too, that are able to help these types of victims. So making sure that they get in contact with different advocates. A lot of women want their voices to be heard, but don't know how to go about letting their voice be heard. And even sometimes when they do try to say different things, they aren't taken seriously, or they might have certain people tell them that, oh, that's not women trafficking and things like that. So making sure that they are being taken serious and that advocates can help them express what they're going through and get that help. Also, support groups for victims are very important. All types of victims have different types of support groups. So making sure that they know that there are other people that have gone through these types of things, and basically providing them with a safe space so they can talk about what has happened to them and what they can do moving forward. Also, housing for victims. Sometimes people move to different places because their families there, different opportunities, or because they're forced to, like Rebecca had mentioned before on the previous slide. So sometimes they don't even have housing wherever they are going or being forced to go. So making sure that they have a safe place to stay so they can try to stay away from different situations like those are very important.
So we chose Facebook as the best platform for this because Facebook has, let's say, people of all ages, specifically like women who have experienced women trafficking, and this is most common social media in today's society because, like I said, it has all age groups, and Instagram and other like Twitter is more like millennials instead and younger ages.
And this is our reference page. So we have all of our references listed for the different sources that we had used to do our research on women trafficking.